Hello everyone, welcome back to our IELTS Grammar Masterclass, and if you've been with us before then you might know that we're going on a bit of a close-up look at the English tenses at the moment. So we've got another two for you today that we're going to be looking at, the present perfect and the present perfect continuous. Okay, so how are these similar to each other? What are the differences? How do we use both of those? We'll be looking at all of these questions today and more. We're going to be focusing at the end on the IELTS exam and how you can use these tenses to practice for your upcoming exam. So I hope today is helpful. We're going to start today by looking at the present perfect. Now you might already know this tense. Maybe you know what the requirements are to create this tense. Let's have a look. So what is this used for exactly? Well, it's a tense in the English language to express the idea that an action or state was completed at some point in the past, but the exact time of completion is not specified, or perhaps it's not important. So this tense is like a bridge to connect the past with the present. So it was completed, but we don't know when exactly, and that information is relevant in the present. So it's a bit of an interesting tense. Sometimes it's a bit hard to get our heads around, but we'll look at it today in a lot more detail. So how do we form it? Well, the key to the present perfect and any tense which has a perfect element to it is to include this auxiliary verb have. Either have or has, depending on the subject and the subject-verb agreement. And it doesn't stop there, and the past participle of the main verb. So we want have and the past participle. Okay, what is the past participle? Well, the past participle of the main verb is a form of the verb, and it's used in tenses like the present perfect, like we're looking at, the past perfect, and also the passive voice. And it's formed in different ways depending on the verb. In regular verbs, we are forming it by adding ed to the base form of the verb. So we know our base form before the verb has been changed or altered in any way. Then we add this ed. For example, talk becomes talked. Okay, so it's quite straightforward. However, irregular verbs do not follow a consistent pattern. So this is where it can cause a few problems. They are unique. And the only advice I've got for you is to memorize them. Examples go. The past participle is gone, so we haven't added that ed. Instead, we've actually created a new word, which has the base verb in it, go, but we've added the n and the e to create gone. So you can see how, okay, it's a case of memorizing. There's no patterns here. The silver lining is that a lot of irregular verbs are very frequently used, so you can pick them up a bit quicker than say other more unusual verbs. Another one, break, past participle, broken. So just something to bear in mind when you're forming the present perfect tense. We need to think about this past participle. Okay, jumping back to the tense at hand of the present perfect. Let's look at the equation now that we're comfortable with the past participle. So we want the subject, we want our auxiliary verb in its various two forms depending on the subject, depending on the number, and then the past participle. Okay, Let's see this in action. For example, he, subject, has, auxiliary, finished, past participle. She has written. It has rained. So you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, it's an interesting tense because it's talking about something in the past, completed in the past, but it's brought into the present. Let's take a closer look at this. So one way that the present perfect can be useful is when talking about completed actions, like we've been saying, with relevance to the present. So why is it that we're talking about it in the present? And we can use this tense to help us with that. So we can describe actions or events that happened at an indefinite time in the past. So we're not sure about the timing in the past, but they are connected to the now, to the present. For example, I have visited Paris. So we've completed the subject here, I, has completed this action. The visiting is over, it's completed, but the focus may be more on the experience or the fact that the person has knowledge about Paris, maybe, or could offer some travel advice. So you're saying that in the present, and it's relevant in the present, even though it was completed in the past. Okay, so that's one scenario. Another could be when thinking about unspecified time in the past. So when we're not sure of the timing or maybe it's not known, then the present perfect can be used. She has eaten sushi before. Okay, so we're not sure when, but that's okay here. We can use the present perfect to bring it into the now, and maybe this is relevant for the present because someone asks you, someone asks the subject, have you eaten sushi before? Maybe someone else says, she has eaten sushi before. Do you like sushi? Maybe you're talking about sushi in general. But we're not sure when, and that's almost not important here. It's just the fact that it has happened. Another situation, you can describe multiple actions in the past. So things that have occurred, multiple events, at different times in the past can also be shown through this tense. For example, they have lived in 3 different countries. So we're not sure when, we're not sure at which different times, but we know that, okay, that's almost not important here. It's the variety or the experience itself, the overall experience, which is the point of emphasis here, not on the time frames. Another way we can think about the present perfect is the duration from the past until now. So when emphasizing the duration of an action that started in the past, you can use the present perfect to talk about it continuing to the present. So forming that bridge, if you like. I have worked here for 5 years. So what do we gather from this sentence? Well, you're still working, the subject I've still working here as far as we know. We're just thinking about the time frame up until the present here. So 5 years ago, this person started working and they are still working. So that connection's a bit clearer here to the present. Okay, so how do we form negatives with regular verbs? Well, we still want our auxiliary verb have, and we want to combine it with not to form either haven't or hasn't. And then we can follow this on with the past participle of the main verb as we've been doing with this tense so far. Okay, so let's see this in action. You can say, I haven't talked to him since last month. There we go, we've got a bit of a time frame there. And if we wanted to turn it back to an affirmative example, you could say, I have talked to him since last month. So just simply take out that not. She hasn't visited that museum before. We haven't completed the project yet. Okay, so fairly straightforward. You just add that not in, and it's very common to use it in this contracted form, either haven't or hasn't, depending on the subject. So we're always ensuring that subject-verb agreement. If you've seen our lesson on that, that's a really useful one. It's changing to match the subject. All right, and then of course we've got our past participle after the contracted haven't or hasn't. Irregular verbs now. So we exactly the same how we create the present perfect with the regular verbs. We still want to follow the same pattern, just with that not. And so he hasn't taken the train to work recently. The team hasn't won a championship in years. I haven't spoken to her since the event. So you want to use their unique, special past participle forms of these irregular verbs. So as long as you're making sure that you're memorizing those, that will be really, really helpful to form this tense and for the IELTS exam in general. That's a good tip to prepare for the exam, because they can cause a little bit of confusion sometimes. That's something just to make sure that you're confident in. Okay, interrogatives. What do we do? Well, we want to invert the subject and the auxiliary verb, have or has. Let's see this in action with regular verbs. So we start the sentence now with have. Have I talked to him recently? Has she visited that museum before? Have we completed the project yet? Okay, so we've got 3 questions, and if you want to switch them back to affirmative examples, then what do? We swap the subject and the auxiliary verb back. So you'd start with the subject. I have talked to him recently. So fairly straightforward with that one. Irregular verbs. Same thing. We just swap the auxiliary verb and the subject, and then of course that past participle form of the irregular verb stays as it is. Have you ever eaten sushi? Has she spoken to the manager? Have they broken the vase? Okay, so that was our present perfect. And as long as you're remembering the past participle and the auxiliary verb have, then you should be on track with that one. So then how do things change when we come into the present perfect continuous? You might have an idea as to how this continuous element perhaps affects the structure and how we form it. Let's have a look. So the uses for this tense, well, we want to use this to express an ongoing action that started in the past. Okay, well that's the same as the present perfect. Continues into the present. And this is where it's different. So it may or may not be completed, right? So it might be ongoing. Okay, so how do we form this then? Well, we want to use the auxiliary verb have. Okay, so that's the same as the present perfect now. We want to use the past participle of the verb to be, which is been. Got that highlighted there. And we want to use the present participle, which is the ing form of the verb, of the main verb. Right, so there's quite a few different things happening here. We've got been and we've got this present participle now. So different from the past participle as we had in present perfect. In a formula view now, so we have subject plus our auxiliary verb plus our present participle. which is that ing. We've seen that come up, and that is what reflects that continuous nature. That's why it's a bit different there. All right, let's see this in action, but we'll just go over the present participle if we are not sure, just to be extra confident. So we've seen this before in the course, but the present participle is a word that's derived or comes from a verb, and it can be used as an adjective as well, but it's also used to form the continuous verb tenses. So every time you see continuous, you know, I'm going to be looking out for that ing. And here we go. So we add the ing to the base form of the verb. Right, examples. I think examples really help to show this and make it a little bit less daunting. So you could say, I have been reading this book for a few hours. She has been practicing the piano since morning. We have been working on the project for a week. Okay, so here we have it. We've got our subject, then we follow with our auxiliary verbs, has or have been. Then we have our present participle, our ing form of the verb. So hopefully that's clear with the examples there, that this is how it is formed, this is how it's functioning, and you can actually see it's quite distinct, it's quite distinctly different from the present perfect, and therefore it's used in a slightly different way. Negatives. Okay, so we want our have, our been, and our present participle, so everything stays the same. To make it negative, we simply add not after have or has. Contractive forms, you might know, haven't or hasn't. That's the only thing we change here. So it's quite straightforward, really. We want to say things like, I haven't been watching TV all day. If you wanted to switch that back to affirmative, you could say, I have been watching TV all day. We haven't been exercising regularly. He hasn't been studying for the test. Okay, so I've just highlighted that contracted form of the auxiliary verb and not. That's what you want for your negatives. Interrogatives. What do we do here? Okay, so everything stays the same. What do we do though? We want to invert, or in other words swap, the position of the subject and that auxiliary verb have and has. In action now. Have you been reading the news? Okay, so you can see that you almost split up. You make the auxiliary verbs into a sandwich. So you start with have, then you want to sandwich your subject in the middle, then you bookend it with been, reading the news. And that's our present participle there. Has she been travelling for work? Another example. Have they been waiting for the bus long? And it's important to note here that irregular verbs don't change how you form negatives and interrogatives, because the present participle doesn't need to change here, so not to worry about that for the present perfect continuous. Okay, let's end today as we like to with an IELTS focus now. So how can you take all this knowledge and really streamline it and make sure that you're preparing for your exam in the best way possible? Well, let's think about the two tenses and how they can be used in action then in the exam setting. So we're going to jump back to the present perfect. Can you remember how to form it? This is a good test. So you might be asked, have you ever visited a famous historical site? And here's a sample answer for us to mull over. Yes, I have visited a famous historical site. Last year, I had the opportunity to explore the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu in Peru. It's something I've always wanted to do, and the experience has left a lasting impression on me. All right, so you've got a sample answer here. Have a minute or so just to have a look through and see if you can spot the present perfect. And then I'll reveal it to you and you can see if you were correct. So, can we remember how to form the present perfect? Anything that we can spot here? Don't worry if you can just find a few parts of the tense. You don't have to worry about the whole formula if you don't want to. That's okay. See how you go. All right, so let's see. Big reveal. Okay, so the present perfect. We are looking for, of course, the subject, but then we want it to be followed by our auxiliary verb, have. And then we're looking for the past participle. So with examples like I have visited, I've wanted, so I've the contracted form. The experience has left. Past participle there. Left being a irregular verb. That's good to spot as well. Right, task 1, academic. You could say the company's profits have increased significantly over the last quarter, reaching a record high. Task 2, essay. You could say, one advantage of globalization has been the increased accessibility of information and ideas across borders, leading to a more interconnected world. Right, so we've got 2 examples here. Now, just objectively have a look and see if you can spot any present perfect with these ones. Now that we know what we're looking for, that auxiliary verb and the past participle. The company's profits have increased significantly over the last quarter, reaching a record high. Task 2. The advantages of globalization are plentiful. It has made information much more accessible to people worldwide. Okay, so have a look. See if you can spot any present perfect in these 2 examples. Right, let's do the reveal, see if you were correct. The first one, the company's profits have increased. And the second one, it has made information much more accessible. It referring to the advantages here, so that's a good pronoun. Right, so that's our present perfect. Now let's seamlessly ease into the present perfect continuous. Got a speaking example for you. Have you ever participated in a team project? Sample answer now and have a look and see if you can spot any of this tense here. Over the past few months, I've been actively involved in a collaborative project at work. We've been working on developing a new software application, and my role has included coding, testing, and collaborating with team members. I have also been suggesting ideas with my team for the future. Okay, so maybe you can remember how to form this tense. If you can you spot it here? Do we need any auxiliary verbs? Do we need any types of participles, maybe? Giving you a clue there. Let's see how we've done with this one. So, present perfect continuous. We've been working. So we need our have, our been, and our present participle this time with the ing. We've been working. I have been suggesting. There we go. A few examples there. Let's see this with the task 1. The demand for renewable energy sources has been steadily growing in the past decade, with a continuous upward trend in consumer interest and investment. So that's something you might say in a task 1, academic. Or you could say in a task 2 in the longer essays, the ongoing efforts in environmental conservation have been contributing to a healthier planet, fostering a sustainable future for generations to come. have a quick look, see if you can spot the present perfect continuous here. The demand has been growing. So we've got the different elements there of this tense. And in task 2, ongoing efforts have been contributing. Okay, there we have it. Well, that brings us nicely to the end of today's video. We've done a great job looking at those two tenses, seeing how they're similar, and actually seeing that they're quite dissimilar to each other, and how we can use them in their specific settings and their different contexts. So I hope that's been really useful for you, and thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.